Welcome to the podcast. I'm Rosa Coelho, your host, lifestyle entrepreneur, health coach, and speaker. I've gone from being in complete overwhelm, burning the candle at both ends, and watching my health, relationships, and business suffer, to creating a life with more joy, ease, and abundance. If you're ready to let go of the overwhelm, reclaim your health, and push past your comfort zone so that you can unleash your next level of success to create a greater impact, then sit back as we delve into conversations as well as bring on guests to share with you tools, knowledge, and real action steps to get you there. Listen in, because you never know when you may hear something that changes everything. Hello, beautiful friend. I hope you're having a fabulous week. I have a special interview for you. This one is with Jennifer Cuaresma, and I absolutely loved this interview. Jennifer is so authentic and shares so much of herself. There were definitely aha moments, and I even got a little teary-eyed at times. In this episode, Jennifer shares her experiences from extreme diets to competing in bodybuilding competitions to nursing school and ultimately to burning out. Through her journey to heal her body and her relationship to food and exercise, she then became a personal trainer. She now coaches clients to eat to fuel their bodies, become stronger, and to thrive. I love that Jennifer believes in knowledge and how empowering it is. She doesn't just tell her clients what to do, she teaches them the reasoning for what they do. This is everything when it comes to lasting results. She's going to share a lot of what she also shares with her clients in this episode. As you listen in, there is one little confession I need to make, and that's that the audio on my side was not great. My microphone wasn't working, and so I had to grab some headphones, and so I don't think it's the clearest sound, but you definitely can understand me. And really, this episode's about Jennifer, so she does most of the talking, and her part sounds wonderful. So sit back and enjoy this episode.
Awesome. Hi, Jen. Welcome to the podcast. Thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I'm so excited to have you on because we've had your now husband at the time when I interviewed him it's your boyfriend, Sean Sidey, who has been on the podcast actually twice, and he's given us so much value. And through him, I started following your content, and I'm just always so impressed with the content that you put out there. And I just feel like you have so much value to provide and have so many gifts that you're putting out into the world. So I was excited to bring you on and just ask you some questions that I was curious about as well, and that I know that will help other people. Let's get started. One thing that was really unique to me with your journey is you don't have the typical just had weight to lose and lost weight, then became a trainer. Your journey is a kind of it has different phases to it, I guess, different levels of evolution. Do you want to talk to us about your journey in this, like your own health and health space?
Yeah, for sure. And it is definitely has been an evolution of me over the past decade. And there's definitely different layers of it. But I'd say starting back would probably be in my early 20s when I got into nursing school after high school. And obviously, when you're in your early 20s and you're in school, that's a really big transition, right? It's tough. You're committing to a lot of classes, hours of work. And before I went to college, I was actually very competitive. I grew up with three brothers. I was always into sports, cheerleading, basketball, all the sports you could name. It was just what I grew up with. And then as soon as I got into nursing school, that all left. I felt very lost. I felt very consumed in my studies. And I didn't realize I was losing parts of myself till it got to the point where I found out that my grandmother had died from pancreatic cancer. And that was a very big moment in my life where I was like, okay, I'm in nursing school. I want to really help people. And, I'm at a place where I'm not feeling too good myself. And one of the biggest breaking points that I had back then was when I was at her funeral, and they took a picture of my whole family. And I saw the picture, I looked back at it, and I was like, oh my gosh, who is this person in the picture? I don't recognize her anymore. Who is she? I was 20 to 30 pounds overweight. And at the time, a lot of these symptoms that I was feeling, like lack of energy, my clothes weren't fitting me as well anymore. I was buying clothes 2 or 3 sizes higher. And I just realized two things. The first was, okay, I'm getting older. This just comes with age, right? The low energy, feeling, gaining weight, all these symptoms. I had really bad migraines at the time. I would never have disability, like really hard migraines. And then on the second part, I was like so shocked about how I looked that I was like, okay, I needed to change. This was something that I can no longer accept. And I feel like a lot of women can relate to this, especially when, sometimes when we're not feeling like ourselves, or our health doesn't become a priority, we start to hide away, maybe not take as many pictures. So that was a really big turning point at the beginning of my fitness journey. And I knew I had to make a change from there. So I started working out again. I started going to the gym and was able to accomplish a little bit on my own and get active. But there was still a big gap that I was missing in my life. And that was that competitive aspect. So, like I said, I was very competitive growing up and I needed that kind of outlet to kind of level myself up fitness wise, but also mentally too. And that's when I kind of transitioned into being a bodybuilding competitor and getting into that realm. I just connected with a few people I knew at the time, got myself a coach, and that really changed everything about my fitness, which was a whole journey in and of itself. You probably know this, but bodybuilding is a totally different realm of sport when it comes to your fitness, right? It's not just a team sport. You're doing a lot. You're dieting really hard. You're doing a ton of cardio. Your your diet is like super restricted and regimen as it should, right? You're competing for a show and you got to get to this level of leanness, closer to like maybe 10% or even less percent body fat to hop on a stage and wear a bikini and all of that and stuff. So going through that experience was honestly quite phenomenal, but there was a lot of negative aspects to it. I did very well. I won my first regional show, my second regional show.
Amazing.
I won a national title. So, that competitive fulfillment really came through and I enjoyed it. However, unfortunately, there was a lot of downsides to it. So we were talking a little bit about this before, but I was actually a vegan at the time, and vegetarian. So my diet was very, very limited. And being on a vegan or vegetarian diet can be somewhat challenging because you're very limited at the amount of protein that you consume in terms of variety. So I didn't realize this at the time, because when you don't know, you don't know, right? So navigating through your nutrition was tough because I was very depleted. It was very restrictive, like I said, and I ended up developing a really, really bad relationship with food through that. Even though despite winning, despite all the success, there was a lot that I had to sacrifice. And I sacrificed a lot of my mental health, obviously the physical health component. I was on birth control at the time, but when you're training to that extreme, some women can lose their periods. So there was a lot of things outside of just the fitness and the nutrition that also impacted my body. So after that, kind of phase, I was like, after my last show, I was like, I'm done. It was the toughest I ever dieted. I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm taking a full break and I'm just dedicating to like living essentially, because when you're competing, there's really you don't really have a social aspect. It's just literally work, sleep, gym, and then, repeat, right? So through that journey, I realized actually coinciding to like working as a nurse, because I was also working as a nurse.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah, you could imagine how exhausting that could feel from working as a nurse, like full time, and actually working on yourself, prepping for a bodybuilding show. I was getting hit in both many directions, but something through that journey was very pivotal in my life, because I realized there was a huge gap that I had in my knowledge, because I was getting education and mentorship from a coach. And then I also had my education from nursing, and also things that I was seeing in practice. I was working at a cosmetic dermatology clinic. So there was a lot of things that I was seeing, that a lot of gaps I was seeing in between, in terms of how can we help people with their nutrition and fitness to help people get healthy and fit. So it was a very interesting kind of two journeys happening at the same time as I was leaving the bodybuilding industry, and then also my nursing career too. I realized there was the gap in my knowledge, so I took the ownership to educate myself. I became a certified fitness nutritionist. I took extra courses on personal training and things like that to really educate myself, and it really allowed me to learn a lot about my body and what I could have done better. And at the end of the bodybuilding show, I actually transitioned from being a vegan, then vegetarian, then pescatarian, then a full-on meat eater. And I haven't given it up since, because I went through such an extreme dieting phase that it just kind of catapulted me to the other side of health, of really learning about nutrition, fueling my body the right way, educating myself, but also really inspiring others through my story and my journey to really taking a root cause-based approach rather than a very surface level aesthetics-based driven approach. So it's been kind of a unraveling of unlearning, relearning, and learning new ways of fitness and health. And, now I'm at a place where I'm healed my body from the inside out, from not just a physical aspect, but internally, hormonally as well. I was on birth control. I was on PCOS. I had PCOS at the time. So really taking, I'd say maybe closer to 3 to 4 years of improving my body from a health standpoint. And that's something that I dedicate myself and as well as the clients I serve, so that they don't see or make the same mistakes that I did in my early 20s. So that's pretty much wrapping up kind of everything that I've been through up until now. So.
Oh my goodness. First of all, thank you for sharing that. And thank you for going into some detail with it, because there was so much, there's so much in your journey that people can relate to. Like, first of all, I felt really emotional when you first talked about that photo you took with your family and that you didn't recognize yourself. And I think that photos are so powerful. Like, a lot of women have that moment. And when I ask them, like, I'm always intrigued about these moments that kind of change things for someone. Even if they don't act on it, they know that was the moment that they had kind of that shift. And photos really play a key role for that. I had the same thing a few years ago with a photo, and I was like, wow. And you're right. It's not about what anyone else thinks, because to other people people don't judge you as much as you judge yourself, I would think. And it's really about you matching the outside with how you want to feel on the inside. And so when you feel that disconnect from a photo, it's really it could be really emotional and powerful, really.
Yeah. I never took any photos of myself during that time, because I just knew that I was not treating myself right. My body wasn't as a good place. So I agree. A lot of people a lot of women specifically can relate to that. And it holds a lot of women back from really kind of like loving themselves and stuff. So.
Yeah. And also, another point is you were trying to do it all. And when you're going to school and you're doing all the things, a lot of women kind of get into that spiral of trying to do everything. And then what comes last is often ourselves and our health. And yet that's the thing that we need most. I know recently I've been going through such a busy period of life. And I remember thinking it's only for a short period of time, but my health will be number one and everything else has to come second, because like you said, like without it, what do we have? I like that the competition was interesting, that you went from kind of into that extreme arena. And I love that you talked about, I think I agree there are positive sides to it. And a lot of times these competitions, that was one thing as a trainer, when I moved from London, I was in London, England for 12 years as a trainer, and then moved back to Canada. And I was surprised at how many women were fitness competitors here. Like, it wasn't really a big thing over there. And I found that interesting, and how extreme it is. Like, I couldn't believe what what it takes. And so I've always had a conflict with it, because often I see women that go into these fitness competitions, and it's actually the catalyst for change, which is a wonderful thing. But then on the other side is that dark side where you're saying, like, it goes to show what you see isn't really what's happening. So someone that looks in that kind of shape may look like they're super fit and super healthy and incredible, yet often they are falling apart because it is so restrictive and so taxing on your body.
Yeah, yeah. It was something I wish someone would have told me going into it. I wish someone who
Mm,
would have educated me on the downsides and what I had to do actually prior to competing, because, something that I do now with my clients is that I always kind of treat their body as a whole. I get them feeling healthy and looking healthy first before going through extreme measures like that. Being a competitor going to bodybuilding is great, if it great for a very challenging standpoint, but there's a lot of risk, especially for women, from a hormonal standpoint, metabolic standpoint, that they need to be fully aware of. Just like
yeah.
doing anything extreme or even taking a medication, you need to be fully informed on the positives and the risks. I think the positives
Yeah.
that I got from it was the fact that I was able to reach those extreme limits, because
Yeah.
people often, we have this form of balance, right? We all are striving for balance, but it's important to understand and experience both sides of that spectrum of like being kind of like at your lowest truly, and then going to an extreme of being super disciplined. And obviously that's a
Yeah.
spectrum, but every individual is going to look different. And like you said, it's a phase, it's a catalyst to really get you started, but it's definitely something not sustainable and healthy for that matter in your fitness.
Yeah, empowering. It's almost like that the industry, because like I do think there's positives to it. It almost has to have the training after the training. Like, how do you get yourself back into a healthy state? It was not too different from when I was running marathons. Like, they were so terrible for my body, but by the time I did the third one, I was strength training. I was getting regular massages. I was doing it so differently to the first two that were done on sheer will and like mental willpower. And so the way my body responded was so much better. But if you, like you said, if you don't know, you don't know.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that all comes down to who you choose to work with as well, right? It's because you
Yeah.
really, when you are dieting to the extreme, you are in a very vulnerable state. And so you put trust in the people who guide you, the coaches you invest in. And so it's really important to find
Yeah.
someone who's super educated in that. And I think, from an emotional standpoint, and even just from like my nursing background, it's important to assess the individual that you're working with, and to see if they're mentally, emotionally, and physically at a
Right.
good place to get to that next level. When I went through that, I developed a really bad relationship with food. After dieting, like after I went through my last show, there were moments in my journey where I was hiding food from Sean. I would go and run to convenience stores just to get a meal and like eat it in my
Wow.
car. There was a lot of things psychologically that I had to deal with for a good 3-6 months, if not longer, to get me to a good place and kind of rebalance my relationship with food, my relationship with my body and body dysmorphia. Like, I just wanted to look lean like that all year round.
Yeah.
And obviously that's
Right.
not realistic, but it's
Yeah.
that kind of rebuilding that you have to do after that phase of a dieting, extreme dieting phase like that.
Right. I love that you're so authentic and so honest with what that looks like, because that could be really embarrassing for people, even especially if they're going through it in the moment. Like the idea of hiding food and having those negative thoughts about your own body, and it can be really hard to admit. I know, like, I work with women who don't have great relationships with food. So whether someone's been on the extreme journey that you've been on, or it just comes down to, it could be anything. It could be the situation that they were raised in that has given them this bad relationship. It could be being with a partner that makes them feel like low self-esteem, and it disrupts their relationship with food. There's like so many, like there's such a huge spectrum of as to what can trigger that. Do you work with women like, do you train them now for competitions, or do you work with like the average woman? Like, who do you generally work with?
Yeah, when I was in my bodybuilding days, I was definitely working with a lot of competitors at the time, and a few lifestyle clients. But I primarily now work with women, essentially
Wow.
a lot of busy women, more health, who have more health concerns, like PCOS or people getting off birth control, but a lot of like working women, like even moms. And it was something that I even worked with when I was in my bodybuilding days. It was one thing I always got inspired. Always got inspired by was all the women, all the moms I was working with, because they always found a way. And obviously being
Right.
a mom, right? Like you, we have very little time. And so, that's who I primarily serve, but I work with a broad range of, women, busy working women, particularly. So.
Amazing.
Yeah.
You on your Instagram, it says that you help women to get stronger, not smaller. Can you talk about that? Because I love that. That really stood out for me.
Yeah, I love that mantra. That mantra came about maybe in the last couple years because I wanted a phrase that really embodied my story, but a phrase that would also be very relatable to a lot of women. And I think
Mm,
we've all grown up to, when we think of dieting, we think we need to be the skinniest version of ourselves, super lean, super toned, right? When really, when we think of health, it's more so not just the physical component but also the mental component as well. And so that phrase in itself comes in two kind of it's like a two-pronged approach where, you are not only building your body, but you're building your strength, right? You're getting stronger. Building muscles is a crucial component to,
mm,
not only looking tone and having kind of that aesthetic hourglass figure, but in terms of a health standpoint, having as much muscle as possible as a woman is going to
mm.
benefit you from a metabolic standpoint if you want to eat more food. Hormonally as well, but strength, right? Energy is when, having kids and when you're getting older, it's great for recovery and stuff. So there's so many benefits to getting stronger at the gym rather than thinking, okay, how can I lose body fat and lose weight and have that particular
Mm-hmm.
number on the scale? And then the mental aspect is very important because when when people say we're getting leaner, you're losing weight, you're actually pretty weak. And so when we
Yeah.
think of getting stronger, we need to build that sense of resiliency, and mindset. So, I mentioned I grew up with three brothers. I also um, grew up with, separated parents. And so there was a period in my life where I had to choose to be mentally resilient and confident in, the decisions I'm making as I kind of grew up as a young adult. And that philosophy of just building your mindset, being resilient, and really leveling up your mindset is key. Not just what fitness does for you, not what it does for you physically, but what it does outside of just fitness, right? So getting stronger of,
Mm-hmm.
mentally, and what that does for you and your family and your kids, how you show up as a spouse or a coworker. That fitness is, or just developing your mindset and getting stronger, does spill over in like other areas of your life. So that's a phrase I live by, and it's something that
Yeah.
I continuously kind of affirm in my head, as we kind of go on. So yeah.
I love that. It is, I think that's the one of the greatest honors being a trainer is it's so magical and it never loses its thing is watching women get physically stronger, but then how it also impacts them so positively in other areas of their life that they weren't expecting. And confidence is one of them. It's so amazing to
Yeah.
witness that.
Yeah. And I wanted to add, additionally to that, that I should have started off with was my name on Instagram is Tiny Fit Jen. I'm only 5 feet tall. So from that phrase really resonated with me because I kind of grew up being someone who was always small, or always having kind of limiting beliefs of being physically
Yeah.
smaller. But also from a mental standpoint, I didn't really
Love
have a
that.
voice. I was very quiet. And so through sharing my journey, I got stronger. Obviously, with my fitness, I got stronger as
Yeah.
well. And now I'm very like blessed that I've been able to really share my truth and, share my story on Instagram.
Love
So
that.
it's a very, yeah, really deep connection with that phrase.
Amazing. I love that you explained your name because we often wonder like how people choose their like handles and stuff for social media. Very cool. Um, Women come to you mostly, I'm sure, for weight loss. And I know for a long time I really struggled with before and after photos because I didn't want to be part of that weight loss world. And then a great client of mine who's like a marketing genius, and she just said to me, um, if you don't if you don't market to what people think they want, you'll never have any clients. And she's like, what your marketing doesn't always have to resonate with your values. What has to resonate with your values is what you coach and what you teach and how you help people. And so I got over that. And it's true. Like I have a lot of women that will come to me for weight loss, but that's not necessarily what I teach. And I know from watching your content that that's not necessarily what you teach either. So when women come to you for weight loss, and that's a legitimate struggle because we can, again, that not recognizing who we are. I don't want to diminish that either. But what other challenges are they coming to you with besides just the weight loss? Because that's not usually the only thing that's impacting them.
Yeah, totally. And I think when we first think about our fitness, or at least start our fitness, or when people, I think, approach me or approach you with coaching, it's usually coming from a place of lack, or they feel like they're not happy with themselves. And usually it does start with like weight loss. That's how I started my journey. That's how many women start their journey as well. I think it's kind of the norm. I think we've also been conditioned through social media and years of things we see online that, dieting is something that people usually get started with. But I think what a lot of people, like some of the challenges or things that people face is understanding, I think, their relationship with their body and the relationship with food are major like components that I see, but also kind of helping, but also like educating them on what that actually looks like and really kind of sustain the results. Because starting your fitness with fat loss, because like just like me, I wasn't happy about how I looked in the mirror, happy about how I looked in photos. It got me started because I didn't like the way I looked, and ultimately had a very negative relationship with myself. And it got me started, but it didn't keep me going. It's not sustainable, right? So building that internal dialogue and building that relationship with yourself is a huge challenge and struggle that people kind of have to unlearn when it comes to, taking progress photos, having a good relationship with the scale. These are all things that are super internal that we don't realize. So really kind of shifting that perspective and helping my clients kind of navigate through that will help them kind of overcome a lot of these mental struggles and challenges that people come to me with, alongside the physical, obviously, changes and struggles that people want help with, and they usually go hand in hand.
Yeah, I love that. You touched a bit on it, but how do you help your clients, and like what are some of the unexpected results that they get? Because I know that clients aren't with you just for like some you may have for 6 to 8 weeks, but I know that you also have longer term clients. So what are some of those results that they get, and what are some of the processes that you take them through?
Yeah, that's a great question. I have a very 360 approach. Like at Health and You, we have a 360 approach in what we do. So our main pillars of Health in You is to look better, feel better, and do better. So this philosophy stands for, okay, looking better is really going to help you from the physical standpoint, right? We're going to help you with, feeling good, training, having more energy and strength. But there's also the nutritional component, which is our feeling better. So we want to make sure that you are taking care of really healing your body from the inside out and making sure that you're doing things the right way. Because oftentimes when people diet, usually just restrict their diets as well. But we really care about, making sure that you are good, you are healthy first before you diet or want to lose weight. And then lastly is doing better. So when you're feeling good, you're looking good, you're ultimately going to do better in life. You're going to do better at work. You're going to do better as a spouse, as a mom, or any, sister, things like that. And we see the impact it does to our clients. And just to add to what you had asked, I help my clients take them through every stage of their journey, not just with weight loss, but a health phase, if they're dealing with things metabolically and hormonally that they need help with, or if they want to level up and go through a phase of really building muscle. So a lot of women fear gaining weight, eating more food. These are kind of unknowns that a lot of women don't know how to navigate, right? They just want to go through a fat loss phase, lose weight, and be done with it. But what do you do after that? And that phase is crucial to success, not just in the short term, but also long term as well. So we take them through all those stages. And then I do, if people really want to level up because they know I have the competitor background, we'll do like photo shoots or even get them to a bodybuilding show. So, we kind of take those through those phases, but we kind of encompass all of that in our more of long-term clients. But ultimately, especially working with me, I really value education. Because I think the more you know, the more empowered you will be to make informed choices about your decisions, because having a coach and telling you this or that isn't really it's gonna help, but it does create this kind of like all or nothing mindset, or just not a full confidence in your own decisions. And if you want to continue and do it on your own, you have to be educated and be aware of the choices you make. And ultimately that creates a lot of success in a lot of women. I'm sure you've seen that with your clients too, where they feel confident and empowered about the decisions that they're making because they have that autonomy. So that's also really important to me, just from my own background and my own fitness journey, and just kind of following things blindlessly, right? Like blindly, with people you trust. But it's always important to have that education too, because you can't, once you take that with you forever. So.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. You said two things that I loved so much. And one is, I'm all about the education. I used to say to my clients, well, I still do, but there comes a point where me telling them isn't empowering. They have to understand why they're doing something. And so I'm all for education is extremely powerful. And too often we do see that where people are they want the plan. They want to follow the plan and that's it. They don't want to understand why it's working. And it's in the understanding that you actually make something long-term. And people are always like, how do I turn a 30-day program or a 60-day, whatever it is, into a lifestyle? And that's how it's to start to educate yourself around the why it's actually working for you.
Yeah.
I love that.
And I think you mentioned something that's super important, in the fact that like, with having kind of that informed understanding about nutrition, I think that really makes a huge difference to the level of adherence and consistency that clients build. Because when you have a plan and you don't really have the confidence in the plan, or you don't have the knowledge, you're more likely to question it. You're more likely to find different avenues or easier ways to get somewhere faster, which usually is not gonna work, So having that understanding, or I guess that really collaborative approach to coaching is crucial. And you don't always get that with a lot of coaches. Some coaches are very like, just here's your macros, this is your cardio, that is it. And then you have those other people like us where we will take the time to educate our clients. And that's why it's so individualized to that approach.
Yeah. I mean, I have a good friend that ended up with an eating disorder because of being with a coach that was like, you can only eat these foods and this amount and that's it. And they became so paranoid with food. And I'm like, it's because they didn't actually learn about nutrition and why these foods are good for them and why they make them feel better. Yeah, it was, you have to be so careful.
Yes.
It's also why I'm really careful about who I bring on, right? Because it is about putting value out there and not adding more confusion to people, because I think generally people are very confused about what the right thing to do is. And I loved both with you and Sean is that your approach was just so balanced and so based on health. Something else you touched on that I thought is just so cool and very valuable, and I don't know that anyone's ever touched on this yet, is that there are different phases. Like you don't always need to be in a weight loss phase. No. And when I tell women, when I'm like, okay, yes, you're in a calorie deficit for like this amount of time, but after that, we're going to actually start to increase your calories. And like, that kind of blows people away because they're like, what? Like they always want to be in the weight loss journey, but there comes a point where there's no more weight loss to be had, and you won't desire that. And if your health is going to be long term, you can't always be in weight loss. I like to look at the year as seasons. Like there's certain seasons where I'm in a bit of a weight loss phase because that feels good. Then I go into a muscle building phase, and then and so looking at the year, it just takes off the pressure. Like you don't need to always be losing weight. And so I think that's so empowering that you touched on that.
Yeah, I love that analogy of seasons, because that's what I say to my clients when it comes to, when someone's finishing a dieting phase. These are the conversations I have where, they need to know, if you want to be able to sustain your results, you have to go through these phases. And oftentimes, some of my clients may feel a little resistant, and I'm not, I wouldn't be surprised, because it's definitely such an unknown, and usually it's usually just from an intuitive standpoint, we will automatically stick to what's familiar and what's in your comfort zone. And most people live and stay, like they start and end in a weight loss phase. So there's a lot of challenges, but also a lot of perks, and a lot of amazing things that can come from these phases, like a growth phase, a health phase, even, and just living in maintenance. I think that there's a lot of people see the downsides, because often our minds will naturally think of what can possibly go wrong, rather than like training ourselves and actually taking us through those uncomfortable phases, and evolving and growing, not just physically, but mentally as well, so that they can understand what to do and pivot and adjust through, like you said, every season of their health journey. And I want to add a little bit on to that phrase itself that I say to my clients is, every level has its own devils. So every level that you get up to is going to come with its own challenges and those mental breakthroughs that you have to overcome and barriers. It's like, building a business, right? You're always going to level up, and there's always going to be new challenges that you're going to face. It's not necessarily bad, but it's just another way of leveling up. So helping, our clients really kind of changing their perspective around it and the benefits, and just like really, reiterating these benefits can really help catapult people to not only see those results, but like keep it like long term. So.
It's definitely, you're right. Like this is not a conversation that people are having for the average woman. Like you have these conversations when you're bodybuilding or you're very involved in a particular sport for performance. Those conversations may happen for some women there, but not in general. And I remember having a conversation with someone who they were panicking about not accessing the gym in the summer. And I was like, I don't strength train in the summer. I really don't. Like right now I'm in a phase of building muscle because it's winter. I'm in northern Canada. It makes sense for me to hit the gym between October and up until March. And so I go heavy with the weights, and that's my focus, and I'm loving it, and I'm building the muscle. And then come summer, like I don't want to be in the gym. I want to be on my paddleboard as often as possible. I want to be going for hikes. I want to be going for long walks. And so that's where like the seasons like really you can set up your training program according to the actual physical seasons, and it just keeps things interesting. Like by the time I'm ready to be done with the strength training, I am ready to be outside, and I'm sick of the gym and seeing those same walls and the weights, like and then I'm ready for it again in the fall. I'm like, I can't wait to lift heavy. And so that's just like another way of looking at it, and I think it's just healthy and keeps us intrigued and not being bored.
I totally agree. It does help women really kind of hit those milestones and not feel like, okay, like when is this dieting phase gonna end, or they kind of like lose motivation. And you're right, like as humans, or even just animals too, right? We go through those seasons for a reason. So following it in hand and with the time of year it is, like it is beneficial. Like I have a lot of clients right now who are going through a bulking phase, and I was like, yes, enjoy your holiday, like enjoy the food, like
Yeah.
have a break, like
Yeah.
look how strong you're
Amazing.
getting. You're hitting PRs, like you're seeing good growth in
Yeah.
like your physique. This is awesome. Like you wouldn't get this
Yeah.
same amount
I
of
love
kind of
that.
like food freedom than you would in a dieting phase. So enjoy it, right? So yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And it's really just personalizing it to you and where, what makes sense for your life and how it fits. There's something that really caught my attention on Instagram, and that was you had a post that oh, it was so good. It was about not shaming yourself into becoming healthy. And I think this is huge. Can you just touch a little bit on that, like why that came to you as an idea and the response that you've gotten from it?
Yeah, I think it was something I was kind of reflecting on. I think I saw another like a uh, another video of something kind of similar that really resonated with me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize this was something that I was doing for a very long time. And it was, shaming my body to being fit. And oftentimes, like, from that very beginning of seeing that picture about myself, when you see something that you don't see, like you're going to naturally
Mm,
look at it and like pick at it, right? Like it's very easy for
yeah.
us to nitpick all the things we don't like about ourselves rather than things we do. And that's just natural to how we're designed. We're designed as human beings to look at all the things that could possibly go wrong, right? As an instinct.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't realize that we do that to ourselves from an internal dialogue standpoint. And so, when I was at that stage of just like picking at everything in my body, even when I was in bodybuilding and dieting, like I thought I wasn't lean enough. I was like, I need to be leaner. I
Wow.
need to be leaner. Like I have this amount of body fat at this part of my abdomen. How can I get it off? Like it was
Wow.
just kind of distracting. And yeah, it got me to a certain place. I was very successful in that. I got I won first place and all those things, but it tore me apart afterwards.
Mm,
And it totally catapulted me to the opposite side of the spectrum. And so, shaming yourself and maybe, starting something because you're just not happy about how the way you feel and look can definitely, it can get you started. A lot of people start that way.
yeah.
But the best thing you could possibly do is to change the narrative and reframing your thoughts to loving yourself, loving your body, respecting your body, and
Yeah.
appreciating it. When you change those words to how you say, like to what you say to yourself, it becomes so much more like empowering. And you could actually look at these things that actually help us feel healthy and fit and allow it to really kind of allow it to become part of our identities, not just because we want to look a certain way, but because of what it does for us. So that's a whole
Yeah.
like philosophy that I really embody and try to get my clients to do too when they really want to shift their identity and their physique long term.
I love that. I always say that too. Like, you don't have to hate where you're at in order to also desire to change and to better yourself. It's like we don't go into, for example, you didn't go into nursing and do the courses and put the work in by saying, I'm so dumb, I can't do this. You know what I mean? Like you're still wanting to progress and achieve something great by being positive with yourself and saying like, yeah, you
Yeah.
can do it. And yeah, I think that was so powerful. And I know that would speak to a lot of people.
Yeah.
There's something interesting. So I know you use progress photos, get clients to weigh themselves, the whole thing. And I do too now. I would say this has been an evolution for me in the last couple of years. It took me a while to actually be okay with it because I was so worried about triggering clients and putting the focus maybe on the wrong things. But I know you use them even though they can be triggering for some people, especially that scale and not wanting to take the photos. Why do you use them, and why do you feel that it's important to use these tools?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I get a lot of my clients to do this because I think it's really important, especially if you have an unhealthy relationship with the scale, first and foremost. It is such a, it's a way of measurement, but it doesn't tell the full picture. And
Mm-hmm.
taking progress photos is another added layer of a metric that you could track that really shows a really good perspective of how your body's changing and evolving over time. But I think in terms of your relationship with just looking at yourself in the mirror, getting uncomfortable, and feeling really comfortable about doing that. I think a really big struggle, and this is something that I had when I was going through like bodybuilding, was that I didn't have that positive internal dialogue. And I think that's more of like the root cause of figuring out, okay, like what are things that you're saying to yourself that you don't like, and how can we shift that narrative of the positive things that we do love. And and I'm so glad that I took it at the time, and I got uncomfortable with taking these progress photos. And something that I do, if that actually got me getting more comfortable with myself, or just looking at myself in the mirror, or comfortable with my body at the time, was taking like form check videos, like at the gym, like filming myself at the gym was another thing that I started building. And I think that really helped me build a relationship with my body and myself. But something like you said too, like, you got to love your body at every stage. You probably have done this. I've done this so many times where I took pictures of a photo of myself that I didn't like. And then maybe 6 months or a year later, I'm like, what the hell was I talking about?
So true.
I'm like, I looked freaking phenomenal. Look at me now. Like, it was that kind of like comparison.
So true.
And so I choose to look at her, my past self. I always refer to any younger version of me, whether that was yesterday or a year ago or 10 years ago. I think it's very important to practice self-compassion and to appreciate kind of, where you are at your journey. Obviously, always strive to do better and step out of your comfort zone, but it's important to build that relationship no matter what stage you're in. Because when you look back, you may regret it. So I'm very happy. I've documented most of my 20s and my fitness, and I have so many archives of my past self that I could look at, be proud of, and really showcase. So yeah, it's a very great way to kind of document your story.
Yeah, I love that. And I agree with that. Even with the scale, like I find I just hop on the scale every day. Like it's just not, there's really no, the number has no meaning to me, but it is a tool. And so sometimes it'll tell you like when your cycle is about to come, because all of a sudden you put on 5 pounds, but nothing has changed, right? And I think it's really empowering for women to start to see a trend as opposed to a daily number. Like the trend is really what matters.
Yeah, you're looking at it at a very micro level, but when you zoom out from a macro level, you could really see, you're like, oh, I'm actually doing pretty well. And from, like you mentioned, from, having that unhealthy relationship from this scale, we tie it so much to our identity and whether we're successful or not. And so one thing that I did, and, like, aside from like fitness, another thing I was super uncomfortable with, and this kind of can go in hand with like taking progress photos, but there's a fear attached to it, right? We're scared of facing the truth. We're scared of really, that's what it really is, right? We're hiding and we're trying to avoid what's right in front of us. And so we do that with our bodies. We do that with money. We do that with other vices in our lives, right? Like I had back then I was in a lot of debt, like in my early 20s. I don't mind talking about this because it was an uncomfortable thing in my life where, me and Sean had to have that discussion, right? Like as a couple and spouse growing together. And I feared it. I feared it a lot. And I avoided the discussion. I avoided like sharing that. And then there was one day where I sat down. It was uncomfortable, but I knew it needed to be done because now I was able to overcome that. And oftentimes ourselves, we will naturally protect ourselves mentally from facing the truth. So it's kind of that breakdown of failure and just those overcoming and understanding where those fears coming from. And it's not necessarily bad or good. It's just a natural kind of like coping mechanism that we have, that we just need to kind of like put aside and really allow us to kind of push through that level of resistance.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you talked about the debt because I was in a similar situation and I did a whole episode on it and had someone come on actually talk about money and all the things because that's also something that impacts health because it's very stressful. And I find that the principles for health and the principles for business and the principles for wealth, like there are principles that will help you in all areas. So if you can start to become disciplined in this area of your health, it will often help you to become disciplined in other areas of your life as well. And so I think that's so empowering. I love that you touched on that. And it's about facing the truth and and tracking. That's how I got myself out of debt, is I just started tracking every single penny and allocating. And it's very similar to what we need to do for health, is we need to start to track what we're doing, whether it's in the gym or with our food. And it doesn't mean you have to track forever or be as aggressive all the time, but you definitely have to go through a phase of being there for sure. I always say maintaining is easier than the getting there. You're never going to work as hard as you are now. And then your body will give you allowances. You can then go on those vacations and enjoy those meals that only come up once in a while anyway, and thoroughly enjoy them guilt-free. And that's kind of like the payoff, that you don't always have to be like that. And same thing with getting out of debt. You might have to be super strict to get yourself out of there and start to build that wealth. But then all of a sudden you have that freedom of like grocery shopping and not looking at every penny that you're spending, right? You could just have a little more freedom in those areas. So yeah, it's amazing that you brought that up.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you want to say to the woman who is like, oh, okay, this conversation really has me reflecting, and I know I need to make a change. I feel like I'm getting there and I'm ready, but I'm still really scared to get started, because what if this is just another time where I start and then I fail once again, and I'm on that crazy cycle of start, stop, and feel worse than when you started.
For sure. And I would kind of challenge that person, be like, what if you don't? Like, what if you actually made it work? What if you actually saw the wins? What if you actually saw the positives, and you saw that number on the scale go down, you started getting stronger? I think we oftentimes, when we want to get started again, it's not necessarily starting over, but like starting new, right? We often beat ourselves up and kind of guilt ourselves as to like why we shouldn't do something, or if something's not going to work. I mean, like I said, we're naturally going to find what's wrong in a process, rather than having the faith of seeing the positives and to actually make a difference. And I think it starts from there. It starts with having belief and faith in yourself, because confidence doesn't come right off the bat. You have to build it by trusting yourself, building consistency, building those habits when you don't want to. And so confidence will come later. And when people start, they don't have the confidence, right? But when you build the faith and you build trust in yourself, more so, that will inevitably build confidence, and then obviously the results you see. But from a tactical standpoint, if you're just getting started, you're getting started again, I would always suggest, start small. Start with one habit at a time, and start with an easy one, because we will often, as human beings, will often go through a path of least resistance rather than one with most resistance. So if we want to get started and we think of, okay, I'm going to work out, I'm going to drink my water, I'm going to get 8 hours of sleep, I'm going to get all my steps in, that's going to seem overwhelming. And you're most likely going to be like, nah, I'm not going to do it, right? I'm not going to do it all. Or and then we try to do it, and it lasts for a week, and then we get disappointed, and it's that all or nothing mindset. So starting with something small, and that could be simply as drinking 2 liters of water a day. Get confident with that. Like, have that one little commitment with yourself and do that. It could be going to the gym if that's easy for you, and just start with that. Find something small that you could work with, accumulate the wins over time, and that from there will snowball, and you can continue to add on after that going forward.
Yeah, I love that. And you know what? I'm going to encourage people to go onto your Instagram, because you have so much amazing content there. And I think that women, we are very intuitive, and we know when something feels right. Like, for example, when I was on your Instagram, I knew that you were someone that really cared about people, and that you're really taking people through a health journey, and not just like this quick fix of lose weight and be on the cycle, that crazy cycle again, that you really educate people. And so I'm going to encourage women to go and start to look and then start to implement some of those changes. But there comes a time where these little changes, yes, they're going to make a big impact, but there comes a time where it's time to like put yourself first and invest in the education so that you really do get the results out of the effort that you're putting in. Because there's nothing worse than, I have a friend like not too long ago was like, I'm going to get fit. I'm going to do 6 classes a day. And then all of a sudden they were doing 6 classes, not 6 classes a day, 6 classes a week. And all of a sudden they weren't sleeping because their hormones were shot. They were probably putting themselves into adrenal fatigue because those classes were intense. We always think like, what is it? Sweat is fat crying, which is not true. Like, so, you know, women just want to
I've never heard that before.
It's not true. I don't know if that was like an ad in the UK that I picked up on, but yeah, fat crying.
Wow.
And it's like, it's not true. You don't have to sweat to be getting results. And that these high intensity classes 6 days a week are actually for someone who has children at home, is working full time, and then to add this and all of a sudden it's impacting their sleep. Like they were putting in so much effort, and which was so commendable. And I thought, like, good for you because you're now committed. However, how sad to be putting in that effort into an area in a way that's actually going to leave you feeling more depleted and could lead into bigger problems down the road, as opposed to investing in yourself to get like the proper education around how to nourish your body, how to care for yourself, how to shift your mindset. And so I'm just going to encourage anyone that goes onto your Instagram to then, you know, start to think of like taking that next step and investing in some coaching. So going from there, how can, other than Instagram, or maybe that is the best way, but what is actually the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Yeah, Instagram would probably be the best way at Tiny Fit Jen. We also have our company Health and You has also an Instagram. You could follow that
Cool.
At Health and You, letter N, letter U _ and then I also have a podcast. So it's the Tiny Fit podcast, where I put out content as well. Not as much, but if you want to hear more long form content on there, I highly recommend checking out my podcast. But yeah, Instagram is the best way to reach out.
Amazing. I'll put that all in the show notes. I have one more question for you. It's a question I ask everyone, but before I get to it, is there anything that you want to add, like anything that we haven't touched on? Or are you feeling good?
Yeah, I think this is really good. I've been loving our conversation so far.
Yeah. There's so many like aha moments for me in this conversation. So yeah, I thank you so much for how you put so much thought and effort into all of these questions. So I so appreciate that. Okay, the last question is, what is something you have heard or read that has changed everything for you? We all have these like little moments.
Yeah. I was thinking about that when you asked me that, when I saw that question, and I think that's definitely changed over the years. I've had to reuse certain mantras and stuff right now. So I think the one that has been really resonated with me recently was one I mentioned already, was every level has its own devils. And right now I'm going through a pregnancy phase. I'm currently 5 months pregnant, if no one knows. Thank you. It does come with its own challenges and mental and emotional struggles, right? The high influx of hormones and getting ready to be a new mom. This is a huge transition and phase in my life. And so really understanding that, what you're going through is not necessarily bad. It's just a phase in your journey that's going to level you up and make you even better. And I think oftentimes we associate ourselves with, when we think of challenging times or things that really where we're faced with a lot of adversity, we tend to either, back away or freeze or, not do anything at all, or go back the opposite, and really kind of spiral down. So, having a really good practice in your faith and having, belief that this is only a moment in time, and to really enjoy it, and to work through and have that good support system, and know that you are only one step further from becoming that newer version of this. And it's kind of like those growing pains that we kind of have to go through. So that's been a mantra for me right now in this current season.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much, Jen. Thanks for sharing that. Thanks for sharing everything. And I'm so looking forward to continuing to follow your journey up until baby comes as well. And we wish you all the best and it's all these exciting changes that you have ahead of you. And yeah, just keep inspiring the way you are. And I really encourage anyone listening that if they're feeling that like impulse of like, this is it, I really resonate with Jen, then just go on and at least reach out. Like, just take that one step. It doesn't mean that you're committing to anything. Like, I think so often we think too far ahead. Just reach out and make that connection. So thank you so much. Have a great day and we'll stay in touch.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening in today. I know time is precious and I'm grateful you shared yours with me. It would mean the world to me if you felt an impact, a moment of inspiration, or learned something new. If you would share it with those you care about and leave me a review on iTunes. I'd love to know what spoke to you or what you'd like to hear more of. Your sharing and leaving a review would help so much on this journey to making an impact on as many people as possible. It's worth it. I know from experience, there are moments when something we hear has the possibility of changing everything.